We've listened to your suggestions on who you should think should be in our latest Toughest Riders video, and here are the results. 4 more resolute, resilient, robust and rugged riders who've made the grade. At only 17 years old, Lauren Dolan is the youngest rider to be included in our Toughest Riders video, due to her immense bravery shown in the individual time trial at last year's World Championships in Bergen, Norway, which drew praise from all quarters of the cycling world, due to her astounding mental and physical fortitude at such a tender age. Around halfway through the 16.1 kilometre event, Dolan crashed after hitting a pothole and slid on her right-hand side, severely lacerating her thigh and her knee. But incredibly, she remounted to finish the event, only 2 minutes and 24 seconds behind the eventual winner, before being whisked off to hospital where she underwent surgery. Let's face it, you've got to be pretty tough if you end up with a nickname, Monsieur Paris Roubaix. Well, that was what Roger LeBlanc was known as during his reign as one of the hardest of the hard men in the 1970s and 1980s. In fact, he was so hard that the French even had a special word to describe that rarefied level of grit, a flout. He excelled in wet, cold and muddy conditions. The more extreme the environment, the better he went. And these attributes suited the demands of cyclocross and saw him take the World Pro and Amateur cyclocross titles, as well as 3 national titles. 4 victories in Paris-Roubaix clearly explain why he was given his nickname, but a more detailed examination of his results showed just how brilliant a campaigner he was over all terrains. Victorious in stages of all of the Grand Tours and a winner of every single monument. So add to 4 victories in Paris-Roubaix, 3 editions of Milan San Remos, 2 editions of the Tour of Lombardys, a Tour of Flanders and a Liege Bastogne Liege, and you get a real fuller sense of this man's capacity to suffer and excel at the toughest races in cycling. 24-year-old American Amanda Koch is one tough bike rider, make no bones about it. She's also the world record holder for the furthest distance cycled by any cyclist in a year. The eye-popping total, 86,573 miles. That's per day around 236.8 miles for 365 days, without a day off. What makes this feat all the more impressive is the fact that she only returned to cycling in 2015, after sustaining a serious brain injury when she was hit by a car in 2011. And during that remarkable run of 365 consecutive days of riding, which started in May 2016, she had to contend with 100-degree heat, crashes, hailstorms and some pretty nasty saddle sores, as well as the monotony of what must have seemed like endless, never-ending laps of a 7-mile circuit on Flatwoods Park in Tampa in Florida. Now, on her longest day, Koch managed an amazing 302 miles, and on her shortest, just 55. Although, on that particular day, we must forgive her, as she was riding through the violent winds of Hurricane Hermine. Dutchman Wim van Aert is quite likely to be a rider that many of you haven't heard of, as he's not one of the big shining stars of the sport. But what he does have is a story that again illustrates the grit, determination and fortitude of so many cyclists, as well as highlighting the risks faced by riders when riding in the high mountains. In the 1951 edition of the Tour de France, a breakaway victory on stage 12 saw Van Aert become the first ever Dutchman to wear the maillot jaune, which he wore with pride on the following day as the race headed into the Pyrenees. However, not being a climber, he was soon distanced as the road reared upwards, and during a furious solo chase on the descent of the Col d'Aubisque, he punctured and lost control, plunging 70 metres into a ravine. Miraculously, he survived the fall without serious injury, and then incredibly, and rather ingeniously, using a chain of linked cycle tyres, managed to scale the near vertical slopes back to the roadside, where he quite bravely tried to rejoin the race before being forced to withdraw by his team management and sent off to hospital. Now, Van Aert did return to the Tour de France a couple of years later, picking up 2 more stages and had a further 2 stints in the yellow jersey. Now, this event was considered so significant that 50 years later, in 2001, the Tour de France organisers erected a monument on the Col d'Aubisque. Let us know what you think of the aforementioned riders' exploits in the comment section down below. And while you're at it, if you already haven't done so, how about clicking on the globe to subscribe to Global Cycling Network for free, and that way you won't miss another video. Now for the World's Toughest Riders Volume 3, how about clicking just down here? And for 5 pros who started out in other sports, click just down here. And don't forget to like and share.